hope I can use one of these mics. Is it working? How's everybody doing? Coming back from lunch, the L-tryptophan is going through your veins. It's a pleasure to be here, and I'm not from this industry, but I am really focused on the people side of business. And as we know, probably the future competitive advantage is really the people, the talent that we bring into the organization. Let me start with, how many people here have had a great manager in your career? How many people have had a bad one? How many of you sitting next to the bad one right now? No. The reason I ask that is we tend to find that people leave managers, not companies. And I don't know if you've ever left a manager, but the key is when you thought about the best manager and the worst manager, the next question should be, was your productivity different? Was your contribution different? Was the degree to which you connected different? And we tend to find it is. So if the manager is such a critical component in today's workplace, we want to study what goes on with great managers versus the average or the worst that you raised your hand to. I've had the chance to study over 250,000 managers, over 100,000 leaders, to date 2.5 million employees, and trying to understand the question of what goes on when you study the best. And because when you study the best, you find some things very different than when you study average. Average is basically you have the best of the worst and the worst of the best. But basically, when Marcus and I started doing the research, I think if we, to identify great managers, I thought if we lined them up all on a wall, we would see some dispositional demographics or tenure or some kind of characteristics. Well, we didn't. What we did find is that great managers do a few things very differently. And those basic things are what I call the 5 keys of great manager. The 5 keys of great manager, frankly, break all the rules of conventional wisdom that we've had about management. In terms of, the first thing is really how we select people. And the traditional thought has been we select people based upon skills and experience. Well, great managers say that's not true. Great managers say we select people based upon this thing called talent. And frankly, in your industry, a lot of people can't afford the skills and experience. We have to look for the talent. But great managers say that is the best predictor of what drives the value of my organization. Now, how do we know what talent is? I mean, we've got great models of talent. We've got Peyton Manning. I'm from Denver, Colorado, which, by the way, I'm kind of high up here, but I'm used to it. I'm from Denver. When you study the best, you find something very different. And there's a difference between talents, skills, and knowledge. Talents are kind of the hard wiring, but skills are those things that are always being acquired, being built as we go. Same with knowledge. But talent now can be explained neurologically. 90% of what we've learned about the human brain we've learned in the last 10 years. Just think where we're going to be in another 10 years. But basically, every one of us in this room have a filter. And I'll use an example here. I'm on a hospital board, and my wife's on a hospital board. When you're on a hospital board, you do a lot of these things called galas. You ever been to a gala? Here's a gala. 400 people in a ballroom that you don't know very well, and you have to find a way to get along. My wife walks into that situation, the stimulus, 400 people in a ballroom. It hits her, she filters it and goes, a chance to get to meet more people. And what she does is she walks up to people and she introduces herself and she learns about them and their spouse and their kids and where they go to school and all that crap. I take the very same stimulus. I filter it and I go, ugh. And what my response is, I go stand in the corner and talk to 2 or 3 people that I already know and get to know them better. Now, does that mean I don't have any relationship talent? Don't answer that. It means that my filter is different than hers. And that filter begins to develop very quickly in life. From 0 to 3 years of age, our brain is going through a transformation where it's building synaptic connections and growing. And frankly, that rapid growth has to begin to slow because it just can't continue to go on. So from 3 to 15 years of age, our brain actually goes through a process called pruning. What is pruning? Well, Dr. Shigani at Wayne State Medical Center said, roads with the most traffic get widened, the ones that are rarely used fall into disrepair. But controversially, from about 15 to 22 years of age, our brain is pretty well formed. Our filter is pretty well formed. And great managers tell us people don't change that much. People don't change that much. But they also go on and say, instead of trying to put in what was left out, let's try to draw out what was left in. That's hard enough. Anybody here had someone try to rewire your brain? Okay, anybody married? You can take the most motivated employee and you can try to teach them a new way to walk, and they will do it as long as they're thinking about it. But what happens when they stop thinking about it? I go right back to the old way of walking. That's our filter. Now, always have to check. Is there anyone in this room by the name of Darwin Daley? Okay. I went to grade school with Darwin Daley. But one of the things I learned very early is that as early as the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th grade, whenever the film projector would break, Darwin Daley was the first one up to fix it. This went on all the way through high school. We're at our 35th high school reunion, and the film projector broke. Guess who hopped up to fix it? Darwin Daley. We know now that that is a talent called restorative. Instead of being intimidated by problems, they actually get energized by problems. But that filter was there in the 3rd grade. By the time we're about 21 and on, it's about bringing the right skills and talent to the wiring, and that's where we actually have incredible growth as individuals. But if you bring big talent into your organization, be prepared. Because the second key is how we focus people. And frankly, if all of us have a brain and we all have a filter, there's nothing very special about talent. We all have it. But what is special about talent is when it becomes talent dead. There's a difference between having talent and being talent dead. And that's where the workplace becomes so important. What a great opportunity to tell people, you come to work for us, and I will help you know yourself so well, and I will do everything in my power to set you up for success. Want to come? But big talent comes with big other stuff. How many people in this room have worked with a really high performer? Incredibly high performer. Were they weird? Were they kind of prima donnas? Did they threaten to quit maybe twice a month? You come in and they've packed up all their stuff and it's on your desk. And basically you say to yourself, oh man, today I need to do mouth to ego resuscitation with Paul. If we want big talent, that's the cost that we bring it. And big talent is really has to be in relationship with a great manager to begin to focus it. Dennis Rodman was hired to play ball for the Chicago, what's their names again? I don't talk about them because of the Denver Nuggets, but the first time Phil Jackson met Dennis Rodman, he said he was sitting in his office. Phil Jackson walked in, he put his hand out to shake his hand, and Dennis didn't even reach back. By the time Phil got to the back of his desk, he knew, I do not like this guy, and I will probably never like this guy. But I didn't hire him to like him. I hired him to win national championships. And Phil Jackson says, I looked around at the assistant coaching staff, and I found the person who gets the greatest kick out of prima donnas. And Dennis Rodman now says that one individual turned his life completely around. First of all, the assistant said, don't shoot. Don't shoot the ball. We hired you because of rebounds. Do the rebounds. I don't know if you've had a manager in your career that set you on a very different trajectory. But it tends to be the person that almost kind of gets the kick out of our human messiness. And frankly, we're messy, aren't we? We have these things called emotions. You know, we're unpredictable. But it's the person that actually we can show the messy stuff to, and they don't declare war on us. And I tend to find, as a psychologist with an MBA, my wife says that's a license to manipulate people, but anyway, what we find with our deepest relationships is we showed our worst stuff, and the person did not declare war on us. The person did not declare war on us. So think about that in terms of your high performers, because they're going to have those needs. Now, we've had some conventional wisdom that basically said, let's box people in to get rid of the human messiness. What does that mean? More rules, more structure. Does it work? It tends not to. Then we've gone to the other extreme, which is the empowerment movement, which basically says, let people go, do their own thing. That hasn't worked. I'll give you an example. When my daughter was young, we were basically in a small town, and for lunch we pulled into a Wendy's restaurant. And the Wendy's restaurant, they took our order, and the young woman was very kind. And I pulled around, and she had this great big blue button on that says, I'm empowered. I'm empowered. All I had was a $50 bill, so I handed her a $50 bill, and she said to me, I'm sorry, sir, I can't break a $50 bill. I'm going to have to get my supervisor. Okay. I'm a workplace consultant. My wife and daughter are in the back seat of the car, and my daughter says, Dad, this does not have to be a learning moment. I said to the young woman, get your supervisor. Supervisor came to the window and said, what's the problem? I said, well, this young woman's been great. I pulled her around. She's got this great big blue button on it that says, I'm empowered. She was great. And then I hand her a $50 bill, and she can't break it. And she said to me the most authentic thing I've ever heard from a supervisor. And that was, sir, this is just one of those stupid corporate imposed programs that we have to institute, and we don't know why we're doing it. But there's another component. Can I empower you? Okay, on the count of three, I'm going to empower you. 1, 2, 3, you're empowered. Did anything happen there? Actually, one very important thing happened there. And that was, I defined for you and all of you who the empowerer was and who the empoweree was. So sometimes the empowerment wasn't much different than boxing people in. Great managers say it's about the outcomes that we hire people. We hire people to actually create outcomes. We don't tell them they have to come in and do it exactly like this, but we say, here's the outcome that I want you to meet. And then they do an even more controversial thing, which is they define the outcome and then they allow people to find their own path of least resistance to get there, which uses their talents. A lot of times people will have an employee come in and they're doing the steps. They're doing the steps. But are they meeting the outcome? Great salesperson, bad salesperson. Great bad salesperson, oh, I had a phenomenal week. 3 proposals, 40 calls. Great salesperson. Yeah, I didn't sell anything either. It's the outcome. That's where we focus. And that's especially true in this day of the millennials. But that leads us to the third key, which is how we help people grow and develop, which is really around not fixing people's weaknesses or not helping people know that we believe anybody can be anything they want to be if they just try hard enough, because neither of those are true. Basically, development is around helping you identify your talent and then helping you find a way in which you can continue to use that at an expanded level. We don't want to put in what's left out. We want to draw out what's left in, and we want to have an experience in our workplace. Great managers focus around strength. Focus really around helping you grow within those areas of strength. And I don't mean to be Pollyanna here. But what I've come to know from managers is that the traditional practices we've had have really destroyed the human part, the value of our cultures. Basically, let's just pick on one thing, the performance evaluation. Anybody ever been through an important performance evaluation? Did you walk away just more excited than you were ever before? You know, the managers hate it worse than they do. But here's the problem. What we've done is we've identified and looked at our top performers, and then we've studied how they do it, and then we want everybody to do it that way, and then we evaluate you. We identify what you're not doing well, and we devise a development plan around how you can get better in those areas. In the 5th grade, I wrote a paper called, "If God Could Come to Earth for One Sunday, What Church Would He Go To?" And by the way, my teacher immediately said Catholic. But my paper was about the heart, the church being the heart. At 5th grade, I got a C because of grammatical errors and misspellings. A C. Fast forward to my senior year in college, in an English class. My final assignment was I took William Faulkner's novel, As I Lay Dying, and I did a psychological diagnosis on every one of the characters. I got a C because of typos and grammatical errors. What I've come to understand about that is I was convinced I'm a bad writer. I'm a bad writer. I should never write. Well, we manage around weakness in 3 ways. 1, we create support strategies. How about spell check, grammar check, an editor from Simon & Schuster, which is a complementary partner, which is the second way we manage weakness. Or we train for skills and knowledge, but not try to put in the talent. We have such a remedial society. I mean, you go home with 3 A's, a C, a D, and an F. Guess where it gets most attention? The F. Which would be fine if I know about that F so precisely that I expand and grow and become even more effective and productive, but we don't. We walk away from the performance evaluation knowing more about who we are not than who we are. We learn, and here's the tragedy. I don't think we hire people because of who they're not. I think we hire people because of who they are, and then we work with that. Great managers say the best don't all do it the same way, but the best create the same outcomes and use very different ways of getting there, thus their talents. The fourth key of great managers is around how I really help transform the person from talent to talented. And it's about finding the right fit between people and the role. What do I mean by that? Well, the conventional wisdom has said that we have this thing called the career ladder. And the career ladder was we continued to climb up the career ladder. Now, the reason the career ladder was there was for people to make more money, get more prestige, get more respect. And there was more money up there. The career ladder is dead. It's dead because of 3 reasons. 1, it created a shortage of prestige and respect. And we actually had jobs that we began to manage as if they were bad jobs. Because you don't have the talent to do that job doesn't mean it's a bad job. Marcus and I had the chance to work with Disney because they were finding that when people stayed at a Disney hotel and they came back, a group of people were asking to be put in a housekeeper section. What? By the way, that would be my worst job as a housekeeper. But we got those people together. And one woman began to talk. And she said, you know, when parents come to Disney and they bring their kids to Disney, they're out in the parks, they're hot and sweaty. Those parents aren't actually experiencing the essence of Disney. Some parents call this hell on earth. So what I do is I take Mickey and Minnie and I put them on the bed. And I put Mickey's arm around Minnie, and I put her hand in an empty French fry wrapper that I found in the trash can. And I put Mickey's hand on the remote control because when they come back to the room and they're hot and sweaty, stressed out, they laugh. They laugh. The focus of what the real outcome is clear. That's why people were actually wanting to be put back in their section. Memo! All housekeepers will now put stuffed animals in compromising positions. We missed the point. It's the emotional outcome that we have. And we're always trying to find that fit, a better way in which I can help you find and specialize, because today we have what's called the career tree. It's not about moving out of the role, out of something you're doing very well in, into something that has a very different set of demands, but it actually helps people begin to specialize. And the biggest challenge I see with my clients is that they always say the same thing. I just don't have enough VP positions to put people in. It's not about that. It's about growing within and helping people develop that career tree around who they are. Fifth key, customers. We've been taught a bunch of crap about customers, which is the customer's always right. They know exactly what they want. They know what they want to pay for it. That's not true. We are switchers by nature. We're not loyal by nature, but we are predisposed to having an emotional connection with someone. Customers are vulnerable because they have needs they can't meet themselves, and they have to depend on others, and the best in us don't always come out in that situation. Great customer approach is about the vulnerability. Instead of putting my hand into the vulnerability of the customers, I actually embrace the vulnerability of the customers. I walk into Nordstrom's. I need a cordovan belt. 3 people come up to me and say, "Can I help you?" And I go, "No, I'm just looking." What? I knew exactly what I wanted. But we don't like to be vulnerable. Okay, the 4th guy comes up and says, "I saw your car. I love that color. Can I help you?" "Yeah, I'm here for a cordovan belt." The old customer ways are not conventional. They're actually customer disservice. And I saw this so prevalently a few years ago. I was in the Atlanta airport in the red carpet room. And they brought a woman in, and I was so struck by how kind they were to her, authentic. These were United personnel. I don't always see that. And I've flown 2.4 million miles with United. Anyway, I'm in therapy for that. But I was struck by how authentic they were. We get on the plane, and she's sitting next to me in the passenger seat. I get to talking to her. Every flight attendant came up to her, and they touched her and said, "If there's anything I can do to help you, please let me know." And it was so authentic. The pilot did the same thing. We take off on our way to Denver, and we get to talking. She's going to Denver to meet the remains of her son being shipped in from Fallujah. It hit me. You did not have to train those people to deal with a vulnerable mother. The natural customer service came out. It's the best thing for ways in which we now see that customer, changing the whole frame of them and connecting to that vulnerability. Thank you very much.